Hello and welcome to a discussion for the Hearts of Iron Dev Diary of Mexico of the 24th of October 2018. They just released it for Mexico, and I thought the best way to start this will be to have a look at the Mexico we see in Waking the Tiger right now. So here's Mexico as we are in the current version of the game, and there are just some key things I think we should take into account. For starters, this country isn't doing as well as one might think. I originally, when I looked at it, thought Mexico was far stronger in the base game than it actually is in reality. You've got 38 building slots, which is a lot, to be fair, but the infrastructure is just terribly poor. I mean, freeze for, there's a 5 at the capital, but for the most part, freeze. Your biggest exporter is going to be 48 oil. So, generally speaking, not much to get your economy going. I mean, you can generally start about 2 factories worth of guns. That's about it, really. I mean, 4 iron. Oh, you've got a bit of tungsten as well. Okay, so you've got tungsten, oil, iron. 38 building slots, 3 military, and 8 civilian. So yeah, not the strongest country in the world. I mean, you'll get more from places like Spain. To be honest, I was a bit disappointed, but I guess that's all to come. 6 units in total. Let's just quickly have a look at those. 2 horses, 3 main. Decent, I guess, division template, considering it's just a starting division, 9 strong men. A horse is pretty thick as well, to be honest, but only 6. Surprisingly weak under the circumstances. Again, I would have thought Mexico's a bit stronger in the current timeline, but surprisingly not. I mean, Canada's literally double that, but I guess not as strong as I first thought. Research of this time, generally speaking, pretty underdeveloped in terms of their research. The 2 things I'd pick out is they have already researched close air support, and they've already researched artillery. So I guess those would be our 2 main avenues if you're going to play this sort of support. Get the artillery out, get some army experience, and then stick it on your divisions as you start. That would be my main piece of advice in this regard. And lastly, just overall looking at their manpower, pretty decent, I'd say. 16.42 million standard in just core. But I would say, like, look at somewhere like Nigeria. 19 million. Look at that. 19 million. And here, 16. I'm just saying. Nigeria is the superpower in waiting. As soon as we can release Nigeria, I'm telling you, that place is going to be powerful in terms of manpower. Anyway, let's go into a dev diary. So, welcome to Mexico, a country ravaged by internal tensions, corrupt politicians, rural rebellions, and threatened by the looming shadow of her northern neighbour. In Man the Guns, you will get the chance to work through all these obstacles, reform the nation, and turn them into a power strong enough to expand or involve themselves in World War II. I think this is the key point here, involve themselves in World War II. The good, the bad, the ugly. It can be seen that there are generally going to be 3 main contending powers for this area. President Lazaro Canderas, President Plutarco Calles, a military strongman, Saturnino Cedillo. I don't speak Spanish. The point is, I think these are sort of your 3 main contenders for standard Mexico play. Slightly more militant leaders the further down you go. Heading towards sort of difference in how the country should be run. All good historical flavour. Economic development. Mexico is a major producer of oil at the game's start, and only stands to increase its role as an exporter as the conflagration grips the world and upsets the flow of trade around the globe. So at this point you can see that your main goal is sort of working off the oil to build up that infrastructure. Of course, when it was a free infrastructure, it can be useful to build that up, so I'm glad that's going to be included. I think one of the major parts of this is going to be getting more civilian factories, to be honest. You've got 36 building slots available at the start of the game. So I hope there's a way to capitalise on that as soon as possible. Of course, we can't quite see what these focuses do. Well, I can have a guess what this one does. But getting those civilian factories up at the start could be a lot more useful in the long run. Here we can see trading oil. As seen in the Dutch dev diary, Hoi 4 is getting a new mechanic relating to concessions of resources from one country to another, which transfers the contents of a state free of charge. This will make its appearance in Mexico in the form of oil concessions to Royal Dutch Shell and Standard Oil of California. Nationalising these assets was a goal of the Mexican revolutionaries from the outset, and became a source of friction between Mexico and the former owners. So generally speaking, this is going to be a way to either say, keep trading with the people you're trading with as it stands, and reap the rewards. Like, there's some quite interesting, powerful things in here. You've got a little bit of research speed, synthetic research speed, but trade laws costs come down dramatically. So free trade, limited exports, all that's going to be changeable, and a little bit more political power gain. So quite a bit of strength from Royal Dutch trade. But of course, this way, you can stick a knife in the back of the Allies and trade with your Soviet or fascist counterparts in that respect. Military expansion. As I can see from this is man the guns, which means Navy is going to be the big point of this, building up a Navy. Of course, they do branch out into weapons, tanks, and then more military factories, I can only assume. However, this is man the guns, so they want you to build a Navy. As to what extent that comes in, we can see down here, you have two choices. Navy for the high seas, or keeping it to yourself. And you get individual bonuses. I mean, this looks very strong. 1 times 100% research bonus. So I do wonder if that's like a... how powerful that's going to be in actual multiplayer gameplay. To what extent will people just start building battleships? I'm interested to see how with the new shipbuilding techniques, whether people will just say, best go for submarines because they're quick and easy to build still, or whether getting those battleships out is really going to be the key to winning naval combat in the next update. Diplomatic relations. So here we can see the Royal Dutch Shell and they nationalised the oil fields, that sort of argument at hand, and how you sort of follow the land with the Allies, or work your way around for the oil that has been took from you, as is the American methodology. Considered America's backyard, an insulting and imperious attitude for the Yankees to take, but one the Mexican leadership must consider seriously before making their move. So this is particularly interesting, these two focuses. International Peacekeeper can send volunteers and gets daily democracy support, as well as the ability to basically deny being justified on by quite a hefty amount. I mean, the methodology here is, if you're afraid of a fascist USA, get this one on hand and hopefully you'll be able to defend against them, because the justify war goal time will just be too painful to deal with. I'm also interested by this German resource exchange. So essentially you're getting the license to a tank. In exchange, you're giving them the rights to oil in that area. So tank for oil, I mean, you can make the argument that without the oil, what's the use of the tanks? But I suppose with the ally on your hand, you might stand a chance. Religion seems to be a glaring part of the Mexican focus tree here. Sort of whether you're with the church, against the church, and also sort of how much you're with the church. Yeah, I think it'd be the equivalent of the Senate.
I am the Senate.
And Congress for the Americans, which is what they're having to deal with their decisions. This is what Mexico's going to be dealing with. Overall, the legacy seems to switch between two main contending factors, the gold shirts and the red shirts. Although I don't have the historical knowledge to be able to tell you the reality. Two groups can rise to power hand in hand with the church, the Catholic conservatives and the synerchists. So in this regard, if you're going with the church, you can either join the Catholics or the Synergists, and then you've got the more atheist approach, which one could see to be a more communist ideal. And then, of course, as is with the alt history, exiled from the Soviet Union, Leon Trotsky has arrived, making him your chief of army and eventually the leader of the Fourth Internationale, which I'm sure will be the aspiring thumbnail of YouTube videos in the future. You know, Trotsky's fourth return or something. It will be plastered at the dawn of the release of Man the Guns. Dreadful. Territorial expansion. By far, this is what will make Mexico fun to play, surely. Heading south, conquering countries as you head through. Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. If you don't want to just send a few planes to help the US against the Japanese, several expansion paths will be available to you once your diplomatic status is settled. Most of these will grant you war goals against neighbouring countries and in some cases the addition of new corps. More corps means more men and more men means more war. Operation Just Cause. The interesting thing about Operation Just Cause, which is the new decision they've added, is that this isn't just going to war with them, it's a border war. So specifically, if you can manage to make some very powerful troops, but only a few, you should be able to win this without having to start an all-out war with America, which I'd say is the main goal in all situations when you're playing on the American continent. Thanks Pax Americana. And that about wraps it up, really. Mexico is the final focus tree for Mount the Guns, so we'll see what comes up with the sea warfare when that arrives. Just looking at the tree myself here, the biggest thing to look out for is sort of paths that take you down the land of annexation. So I'd say fight capitalism in Central America is your sort of aggressive path over here, as well as the gold shirts for a more revolutionary path. And then Bolivar's dream, unify Central America. So I wonder if these two focuses have the same end goal. But generally speaking, this part of the tree seems to be the more aggressive path. And finally, at the end here, seize the Panama Canal, rescind the Mexican cession, and reclaim the lost lands. The war against America is very much in line with the path. Anyway, thank you for watching, and perhaps we'll do this again sometime. Adios.